not the most flattering angle. Oh well. Some of you might remember that at the beginning of this year, I worked on my office. I created a miniature making cave. I used shelves and rearranged everything so that everything was really accessible and easy to find. However, the one thing I didn't organize was my miniature collection. It is all up here on the top shelf. It is a mess. There is no type of organization. I just put stuff in bins whenever I got it, and it's hard to find anything. So today I'm going to work on that. I did purchase some bins that I think will be really helpful, and overall I just want to take everything out, see what I have, and organize it so it's easier to find when I start working on the projects I need those items for. I am up on a really tall stool at the moment, so I think it's time for me to stop this intro and start pulling everything down. Let's get started. Initially, I started pulling down everything in my collection, but then I decided I was just going to pull down the small things. In this video, you'll hear me reference small, medium, and large miniatures. So what that means in my mind is small miniatures would fit inside a 1-inch cube, and medium miniatures would sit inside a 3-inch cube, and large miniatures would be anything bigger than that. So I'm starting with the small miniatures, which is why I have these. They're kind of like embroidery thread dividers, which is what they're mostly used for. They can also be used for jewelry. Sometimes they're called jewelry organizers. So I'm going to be using them for the small miniatures, and I'm first writing out some ideas for categories. The way I'm going to sort this is by categories, and so I have to figure out what those are first. I do know I have quite a bit of food, so that was a no-brainer. I'm also going to be putting food accessories inside the same cubby. Food accessories would be things like plates or kitchen appliances like this little crock pot. The process here is to go through every single one of my small bins and pull out all the pieces that fit into this category. To make this process work, it was really helpful to have some brand new organizers that didn't have anything inside of it. This meant that I didn't have to get everything out of my older ones in order to have a place to sort them. However, if you're unable to get some new organizers and want to use what you have, you can lay everything out on the table so you have an empty organizer to start with. I had these really cool Krisenbond pieces that were a gift, and they're taking up quite a bit of room in here, but I'm just trying to get everything in there that I think fits into the category. After I had my initial sort of food and food accessories, I could use my label maker to make the tag that lets me know what's in here. It's nice that it is a clear container so I can see what is inside of it, but it's also going to be really nice to have those word cues that my eyes can just scan all of my bins and I'll know exactly what I'm looking for, especially if I'm looking for a piece of food or a plate to put onto something in one of my scenes. So here it is labeled on both the side and the top. This is going to be much easier to look no matter what direction it is sitting. The next category I'm doing is animals and humans. I knew I had a lot of animal, like little statuettes, so I'm putting those in there. I'm also putting human parts, which seems kind of a strange thing to say, but like I had those little 3D printed hearts. Those are going in the human category. I had a few pieces that were technically animal shapes, like the little rocking horse, but they look more like toys and not like a statuette or a realistic looking human, so I'm putting those in a separate category, so I just set those to the side. I recently purchased these little mice. I love putting mice in my abandoned scenes, so those are definitely going to be going in this category. And just like the last one, once I have my initial sort done, I can use the label maker and put the label on right away. I had to switch types of labels and I thought they were the same, but my next labels are going to be clear and not have like the white backing, which is kind of annoying, but oh well, it's what I have. The next category I'm working on is plants, and this is going to be more like house plants because those are going to be smaller. I do have an entirely separate container for greenery, but that would be more for landscaping. So this I'm thinking more just house plants, things that would be nice to set on like a side table. I also decided to include lamps here because I just didn't have enough plants to fill this up, and I feel like lamps go on a side table as well, so I started them on the opposite side of the container. I also added jugs into this mix because I had quite a few big jugs or pitchers, and they can also hold plants, so it seemed like the category worked together. As I was continuing to sort, I found more and more food and food accessories, so I decided to take that large Krisenbahn set out and put it in one of these little IKEA containers. I'm going to hold on to that for now, and maybe I can find a better place for it later. But now I have a bit more room in my food and food accessories container, and it's just going to be a lot better to sort everything in there. So it's a lot of moving things around and making little micro decisions as you go along. Both of the containers you see on my screen now are unsorted. However, they started to get a little bit more sparse as I was pulling things out of them. So now I'm consolidating down some of the unsorted items so I will have a free container to continue to sort into. It was really helpful to continue to consolidate things down because then I didn't have to go into as many containers as I did before to look for things. And I noticed this one had these little embroidery threads on the bottom. I think this was my little junior high embroidery thread container that I used to make friendship bracelets out of, and I had like little samples of the threads I had. So that was kind of a fun little throwback to junior high era. One of the very few sorted containers I actually had in my original collection was this little green one that was full of toys. And I knew I had a lot more toys to add to this, so I decided to move everything I had already kind of sorted into this green one into a larger container. This way I could have all the toys together. And you might be asking, why do you have so many toys? Well, I do have a project coming up that would be kind of like a toy store, so some of these will be getting used very soon. I also added plastics on the side of this, so if it's some kind of plastic, less real looking miniature, it can also fit into that category. After my first initial sort, these were my categories, and I will tell you it is very important to have a miscellaneous items bin because not everything's going to fit into a category. Here are all the ones that I have left empty, and I do have important ideas for these bins, so I'm not getting rid of them. This one is a little bit smaller than the rest of them, so I'm going to turn it into a sorting bin. And the idea behind the sorting bin is that if I do get a collection of miniatures in, and I don't have time to put them in the correct place, I can put them straight into the sorting bin, and as soon as the sorting bin is full, I have to sit down and sort it into the larger bins. This can be helpful because I know my own tendency to just throw things into a safe place and not actually organize them. So hopefully this will help me keep things somewhat organized by having a place to put some chaos until I'm ready to organize it all, if that makes sense. These smaller bins I'm going to turn into project bins. These are going to be ones that I can start pulling things from my sorted bins to specifically hold on to for projects. So earlier I mentioned the toy store. I'm going to pull out some miniatures from my sorted toy bin to go into this. This will give me a little bit more room, and it earmarks these miniatures for that project, and I don't forget that I want these for that specific project, and they're just kind of saved. It's like putting a save on this selection of miniatures. So what I'm looking for here are a collection that look like they could sit on a shelf and be multiples of each other. And, you know, because in a store you would go in and there would be multiples of the same type of toy so that everyone could get one if they wanted to. So I pulled out some little bears. I have some football players, some soccer balls, a football. I've had these little train pieces for a while. I think that'd be really fun to have a train sitting out. And once I have everything that I'm interested in for the toy store, I marked it with a dry erase marker so I know what it is saved for. Then I can take some of my other plastic or toy type miniatures and fill in the gaps that were left after I pulled those out. I'm now going to be putting these with the store that I hope to be my future toy store. This was up on a shelf, so I was trying to be careful. These are going to go inside, so I have everything saved for that future project. I spent a couple days working on the really small miniatures inside these boxes. They're all sorted for now, but I do know I have more small miniatures in my larger bins that are still up on the shelf. So I'm really glad I did this first, because now as I go through the larger bins, there is a place to put the smaller miniatures. I also found a couple things that need to go into larger organizers, and I realized I need some type of system for storing flat things, because these little cubbies inside of here are not great for things that need to stay flat. I also still have this bin that I put all of those Prison Bond miniatures in, so these will probably be sorted into something larger, maybe still in the bin, maybe not. I'm still going to be figuring all that out as we go along. So now I'm going to clear up my desk, pull down some of the larger items, the larger bins. That's going to take up a lot more space. I might actually bring in another table. I'm not sure yet, but I'll just take it a little bit at a time. I think that's the only way to get through a project like this. Also, really quick, a personal update. If you saw my recent post on my community tab, you will know that we're having a bit of a health issue in our home right now. We are working on it. Thank you so much to all the support that was on that post. I really appreciate it. And until we get things figured out and kind of back on track, videos will be kind of sparse, like you see this one here. There was quite a bit of distance between my last video and this one, and it may be things that are a little bit easier for me to do in little bursts of time. I am the main caretaker for my family member who's having the health problem, and it makes it really hard to focus on the Beetlejuice house or any specific project. So I'm trying to do little things in between when I have time. So thank you for now and in advance for your patience as I try to get videos out when time allows. So here we go. I have my fingers crossed because I am boiling eggs on the stove and I don't want to forget to go turn them off, so that's what's going on. My working theory is that organizing the furniture is going to be best with different depths of organizers. So this is a deep organizer. This one's a little bit more shallow. This one is maybe 3 inches. This one's about 5 or 6, and this one's 4. So my miniatures can be organized by how much depth they need in the containers, and hopefully by what they're best used for. I do have a few more that are even deeper than these, but all of them are clear, so I can essentially just pick up the container, look underneath or around at the sides, and decide if I even need to open it to get inside of it. I will put a link to the containers that I am able to down below if I know where I got them from. So if you're interested in getting any of them for your own organizing, you can. Okay. I did decide to get a table out to hold everything on it. All of the pieces you see on the table are completely unsorted. It's just things that have been dumped into bins as I got them. I do have 4 new bins to start sorting into, but I am going to need all of these bins by the end of it to sort the entire collection. The first thing I'm doing is just pulling out all of my furniture. Anything that's like a wooden furniture is kind of big. That is all going to get pulled out of each individual bin. I'm not going to be able to see everything. As you can see from this bin, it's all just kind of piled on top of each other. So I'm just pulling everything out as I find it. And here is a bit of a better look at what is going on. It's just a mixture of all sorts of things I have collected over time. And if you think this is a lot, it is, but this is also my profession, I guess. So it would be like a lawyer having a lot of books. It would be like a nail tech having a lot of nail polishes. It just comes with the territory of being a miniaturist. You tend to collect things over time. So now I'm organizing everything to get a thumbnail because of course I am a YouTuber, so I had to get some kind of thumbnail with a bunch of miniatures to catch the eye. But once that was done, I really needed to get back to the sorting. One of my first loves in miniature, one of the things I love to make and collect are chairs and couches. So I knew I had quite a few of those, so that is where I'm starting. I started out trying to see how they were going to fit in this bin and if this bin was going to be the right piece for this part of the collection. So once I got the red couch laying down, that's how it fit in there, everything else seemed to fit in this depth of bin. So then I could pull everything out that matched that description. I have all of my couches in here, and then I could start working on another bin. This is going to be more like chairs. I also have a couple porch swings, so they kind of change positions a few times. I didn't really know where to put them. And then I grabbed all of my rocking chairs and any other chair that fit into this part of the collection. Any chairs that were part of a set, I tried to put together, and I did find that there were chairs that went together that were in different containers previously. So I was finally able to put chairs together that were supposed to go together that I didn't even know I had duplicates of. So that was kind of a nice discovery as I was going through this. The next bin was tall, skinny cabinets. I realized I had quite a few of those. And then I worked on tall cabinets that were a little bit wider, and those fit in another one of these 3 to 4 inch tall bins. I think they're more like 4 inches tall. And the one that's laying down right underneath where my hand is right now has spider webs on it, but they're fake spider webs. So just so you know, there's not real spider webs. Once I got all of the cabinets organized, I could clip them together. These bins that I purchased do clip together. They're okay. I don't completely trust the plastic clips on the side, so I do try to pick it up with my hand underneath it, but I can put those off to the side and continue to sort. I did find that another category I had in this large collection is a lot of building pieces, so door frames or window frames. I found a bucket that I'm just putting everything into for the moment because I don't have another clear bucket to work with. So these are kind of temporary buckets, this white one and the red one. And in the red one, I'm putting small miniatures that need to be sorted into my small storage containers. So once I had a clear bin that was finally empty, I could put all of my building materials into that one because I do know that is a category that I want to create. So it was very much just going back and forth trying to get something empty so that I could use it. So I highly suggest having some temporary buckets to sort things into until you have a clear one that you know is going to be a specific category. I'm now working on the bin that is going to be my beds bin, and I do have quite a few beds. Most of them are broken, and I will admit that I just did not have great storage, and they either got smushed or they got, you know, just kind of crunched in one way or another. They're still good, I just have to do some repair work on them. So I'm glad to finally have a bed bin where I know they are safe. So now it's just going to be a lot of back and forth, pulling things out of bins, putting them in a temporary bucket, and then waiting until it's empty so that I can get something else sorted into it. At this point, I was getting real nervous about this red bucket. It is full of things that need to be sorted into my small storage, and it is very, very full. So I'm going to have to address that because I don't know if I have enough room for all of these things. Plus, I have a lot of these medium-sized miniatures, and if I put them in the large bins, they're just going to look like a mess. So I'm going to have to come up with a way to sort my medium-sized miniatures that kind of fit inside of a 3-inch by 3-inch by 3-inch cube. How am I going to sort those? So there's a lot of thinking and pondering, and this entire bin was also more small/medium miniatures. So I feel like I was prepared for the small ones, I was prepared for the big miniatures, the furniture, but I didn't know what to do with the medium ones. So I just started going through this bin a piece at a time, and it really took a long time. Thankfully, there were a few things in there like these buttons, which could be put into the doll making supplies that I sorted in my last organizing video. So some of them did not have to go into my miniature storage. But I just want to stress how long this took and how many breaks I needed to take over this process. So even though you're watching a 30 or 40-minute video of me sorting this, it did take quite a few days. One of the next bins I wanted to create was a character bin. I do have quite a few characters, but I've never really had a place to store them safely, and I have some different types, so they're all going to go into this bin. So when I need to find a character, or if I decide I have something that will work for one of these, I know exactly where they are. Here is a look at my first initial sort of all of the large miniatures. So you saw my cabinets and my chairs and my couches. I did put ottomans into the couches and I moved one of the porch swings in there. The cabinets stayed pretty much the same. But then underneath, I'll show you a few of the other pieces that I've sorted. This bin has a lot of medium-sized things, so I'm going to have to switch that out. It's not going to stay this way. The beds bin is definitely staying like that. And then this bin has quite a few tables and surfaces and bookshelves in it. It's just kind of a random wooden furniture bin. You're definitely going to need a few miscellaneous bins. This one is large wood furniture. And then let's see, what else do we have? Oh, we had the construction bin. So it has fences, doors, windows. And then this one is kits or furniture that needs to be repaired. So anything in that bin needs some work before it can go into a project. So here is my initial sort of the large items. I currently have one empty bin underneath the desk and all of this to still go through, so there's still more to do, but I will put a PDF down below of all of my categories if you're interested. I've been sorting through everything for a couple days, a few days, maybe more than a couple. Sorting these little bitty things is really taxing, I would say, and so anytime I just start to feel myself slump and just be done with it, I'm like, okay, time to walk away, time to go do something else. However, I realized that all these bins that I previously sorted are getting really, really full, and I'm starting to have to put things on top of things on top of things, which in turn will make it even harder to find what I'm looking for. So I decided to go ahead and get a few more of these, and that will help me continue to sort and make sure that things are placed to where they are easy to find in the future when I need them. I am also taking out some things that I know I am not probably ever going to use, and I'm going to put them in a donation pile. Whenever I go to Society of American Miniaturists events, they have a free table, which is great to participate in because you can put something, if you don't think anyone would ever really want to pay for it or bid on it, you can put that into the free table. But they also have an auction that raises money for Mini Sam, which is what we call it. And so I can just donate those items and then it can go to raising money. I also have that pile while I'm continuing to sort the things that I could possibly use. Now the trick is to figure out what categories these boxes are going to be. So I'm probably going to open everything up and see if I see some kind of common feature that's taking up a lot of space in all of my boxes. So it could be something like metal miniatures or metal and glass, because I have a lot of glass jars. So those could be put into one of these boxes and I will know where they're at if I'm looking for something that's metal or something made of glass and they aren't taking up room in specific categories that I need more space in. And actually I just came up with that and I think that's a good idea. So I'm going to put glass and metal into one of these new categories and continue my sorting. There's still quite a bit left to do. My initial categories were sorted by purpose, so if you would use it in the kitchen or if you would use it as decoration, those type of things. But now I'm sorting more by material in the metal and glass miniatures, and that's a great way to free up some space but still have a category where you know you can find things. I also made a holiday miniatures and also other scales, which I did have some quarter scale and some half scale items, so that made a nice home for those miniatures. Now I can get into these two large scrapbooking bins, which I do really like scrapbook paper holders. I really like their depth and they're very wide and easy to stack. So if I had more of these, I would definitely be using more of them. But at this moment, I didn't have any other buckets to sort into, so I just started clearing them out and, well, first making a mess, but clearing them out and putting the miniatures all over my desk so I can start to see what is in here. This is another case of things just being put in over the years where there was an empty space and not really thinking about the organization. I found it this time, if you remember this little IKEA container, they're kind of hard to open. Well, I found that 6 of them fit really well inside of this scrapbook container, which will make an easier way to sort things so it's not just a mess of medium-sized miniatures inside of these pieces. So if you remember, medium-sized miniatures fit within like a 3-inch cube. So these would be things like my metal pencil sharpener collection. They're too big to fit in my jewelry organizer boxes, but they fit really well in here, and I feel like they're divided out to be in different categories. So this is the categories that I came up with so far. I have my Chrism Bond, some wall hangings. Those first 2 were like metal miniatures, and then I have some larger vases and some outdoor just decorative pieces. So I do think I am wasting a little bit of space in these organizers because they don't fit exactly, but I can kind of deal with that in the future. Right now I'm just trying to use things that I already own to store my pieces. So I added 6 more bins in this other scrapbook paper organizer, and I only had 1 category so far, which is going to be larger fabrics. So I have these couple of dresses and this clothing protective hanger thing. Also these little shoe rack. So that's going in this first bin. And I don't currently have any other categories, so I'm just going to let that medium organizer sit to the side while I try to sort through the things that are left on my desk. I'm trying to pull out things that are specifically furniture, things that are smaller or a different scale. At this point, more of my sorting buckets were free, so I was able to sort some other categories to get them off of my desk so I could focus on the furniture. The furniture is going to be sorted into my previous categories. I have this beautiful teal set that was sent to me from She, and that is going to go in my other scales category. So when I start working on another half scale project that I know I need furniture for, I know I can get into this bin. These pieces are Petite Princess, which are more of a 3/4 inch scale, and then I have a couple half scale items, so it's going to be really nice to have an other scales category. And then of course you need a miscellaneous category. Just like I had miscellaneous in my smaller miniatures, I need miscellaneous in my larger miniatures so that everything has a home, even if it's really weird. I'm putting these large dog characters and this little skeleton into my characters bin, and now my desk is starting to look a lot more clear. Once most of the furniture was put away, I could get back to sorting out my medium-sized miniatures that had been put into this bucket. I also made sure to have my sorting bin nearby, so when I came across any small miniatures, I could immediately get it into the sorting bin. This kept me from having all 10 of my jewelry organizers that had my small miniatures on my desk. I could just put them into the sorting bin while I was still going through the medium-sized items. Here are the categories I came up for my second medium-sized storage. I have some outside items like a recycle bin and some pillars. This is another miscellaneous. Like I said, always have a miscellaneous. This is a collection of some chess pieces and some thimbles that were my grandmother's. And then I have a larger statuette type animal, larger animals, I guess I would say. These are some wall hangings and light fixtures. And then finally I have that fabric bin that had the clothing, and I just added this little set of like kitchen drapery. Thankfully, that fit all of my medium-sized miniatures, but I will have to look into something a little different in the future if I end up collecting more of this size. I think I'm on my last day of sorting. I have my hood on because I don't feel like taking a shower. I'm not putting makeup on. I am a sorting gremlin, and I am ready to finish this project. I have also been saving up all the empty bins that I previously had. They're all different sorts of shapes and sizes, and I'm keeping them because they may be great for sorting things that I need for projects. Like I showed you previously with these little bins, 2 of them are now in a future project. But I'm hanging on to them for possible future use, but at least they are gathered and can be easily found. It's making noise. Oh, it's the arm of my chair. Once I get through all of this, I can add labels to everything in the larger section, the big furniture, so it's labeled as well as the smaller stuff, and then put it all away. I'm excited about that. So let's wrap this up. Earlier, I mentioned the need for some flat storage, and that's where these scrapbook paper organizers come into play. I'd forgotten my sister had gotten me these for Christmas, and they are going to be perfect for storing things like rugs or wall finishes that need to stay flat. So thankfully, everything fits in here. That's another reason I love scrapbook paper organizers. They're usually like a foot by a foot, and so they can hold quite a bit or quite a large piece of material within them. So I'm going to do one bin that is for rugs, one bin that is for finishes, so it could be like tiles or wallpaper. So these are backsplash tiles, and I just want them to stay flat, and this is going to be the best way to do that. I tried to put a wallpaper roll in there and that did not work, so it will definitely just have to be flat things for now. I'm also going to make a bin for paper items. So I have this old clue set that I was making a clue project at one time, and then I have some of these printables that you can fold up to look like food and all sorts of things. So I'm going to have a paper bin that has paper items that need to stay flat inside. So I have rugs, finishes, and paper items, and they will all be protected within these really thin bins. Now I can just go through the rest of everything that is left, find where it needs to go. I mean, it's just going into every single possible category. But thankfully now they all have categories that work for them, and I can put them away properly. It's bags like this that makes sorting a miniature collection so daunting. There could literally be 30 tiny things in here that I now have to make 30 tiny decisions over. So it can definitely be daunting. So I just go a little bit at a time. I have my sorting bin here, which I try to kind of put them in subcategories in the sorting bin, but at least they're no longer in this chaos and look a little bit easier to sort once they're in here. Then I can sort these into the other bins one at a time. Okay, so here we go. If you do decide to try your own organization, you may find that the sorting bin is really annoying. It just depends on how many of those little jewelry organizer boxes you have, and if they're annoying to keep on your desk and keep switching back and forth. So I found the sorting bin really helpful, but it'll just kind of depend on each miniaturist and how their collection works for them. So this really was my last few minutes of sorting things out, and I found that most of the categories I came up with worked for me. However, again, if you have your own collection and your own items, you may need different categories, or you may not have as many of one type of miniature. I'm calling this thing done. Now we can do the final labeling. I labeled the jewelry organizers as I went along, but I did not label the larger bins simply because I didn't know if they were going to stay in that bin or not. And now that everything is sorted, I can go ahead and label them. And that means everything. I want everything up on the shelf to have some kind of keyword that lets me know what's in there. Yes, they are clear, so I can see what's in there, but the words are an extra visual cue just to let me move a little bit faster when I'm looking for something specific. This called for some snacks and my label maker, so I got some Cheez-Its and got to work making the labels for every single thing. It is double the work to make 2 labels, one for the front and one for the top, but I find it so much easier to find things because if you have an entire collection sitting flat on your desk and you want to find what you're looking for from the top, you have a label up there, and then if you have it sitting up on a shelf, you have a label on the shelf so that you can see from the side what you have. I labeled all of the mediums separately, but you can see through the top, so I think that's probably the best way to go about it. And finally, the Krisenbahn, I think I spelled that right, is labeled, and it is contained that initial collection that I didn't know what to do with. And then I went ahead and labeled my empty containers bucket. And before I label the larger ones, I am going to clean them a little bit because I don't know if it's just like oils from my hands over the years. The sides of some of the older bins were just looking a little foggy, so I used a microfiber cloth to clean them up. They're still not perfect, but they're a little bit clearer. And then I did labels for every single one of these, and I am showing you here that I have my shoe collection specifically in this bin with the other scales because I sign all my work with the shoes, so I kept them out of my other storage just so I knew that they were set apart for something a little bit different. And of course, my last label, I ran out of labels, so that always happens. I have one more label to make and I ran out. So I did fill in another label maker cartridge and I was able to finish all of the labeling. Here are all of my categories. If it's hard for you to read them, like I said, I will have a PDF down below that has all of my small, medium, and large categories listed so you can see what I came up with. And that PDF will also have a few tips and tricks that I thought of during this time, and even some suggestions for sizes of bins, etc. So if you're really looking to get into this and try it yourself, that PDF may be helpful to you. I was so excited. I know I don't look it, but I was very excited for this point of putting all of the bins back up on the shelf. They are completely organized. I did want to leave them all in one layer, but I had to double up this larger bin, so I just made sure the labels were facing outward so I could see them even if I have to remove the front stack to get to the back. I had to put my medium-sized storage on the shelf underneath it, but here is how it looks all organized with the labels so that I can find everything. It is so much easier to look at and see what I need. And I did this little tour shot before I decided, like, why do I have the medium storage up towards the front of my shelves? Like, shouldn't I put my miniature projects up there? Because then that's what I really want to look at more of. So I swapped those, but then that was the final placement for all of my miniature sorted bins. Mission accomplished. I have organized every single miniature that I own. Don't come up the ladder, okay? Stay. It's okay. It's okay. I'll come down in a second. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you're thinking about doing something similar like this, I have put a PDF of all of my categories and some of my suggestions for organizing your own collection. I will also put links for the tubs, as many as I can, that I remember where I got them from. I did think it would be really fun to maybe do a video at some point where I have to pick a bin of each size, like a large size bin, a medium size bin, and one of my smaller organizers, and I have to make a scene based off of items in those bins. I don't know, let me know if you think that would be a fun video. Something down the line a little ways, but yeah, just an idea. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for being patient as videos are coming out a little less regularly, but I hope they'll start picking back up again soon. I hope you have an amazing week, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye. One thing I didn't mention is how many legs I found during this process. So now I get to play Furniture Cinderella and find all their owners. Okay, I think we have one Cinderella right here. You get this one. Oh wait, there we go. You get this one. Okay, that one's not for you. Nope. Okay, this one is definitely yours, but you're still missing another one. That's more like it.